I read 163 books cover to cover in 2024, and today I want to teach you the exact speed reading system that I use to increase my words per minute and help you get more from the pursuit of education that you want to have. Let's get started. First thing I want to talk about is books. I'm obviously a huge fan of reading. It's obvious from my podcast and just anybody that knows me. And here's why. I believe there's nothing that will grow your knowledge base and education that pales even closely in comparison to reading books. When you read a book, this is Good Inside by Becky Kenny, it's a parenting book. When you read a book, you are taking somebody's life work, tens of thousands of hours of studying and research that has been spent hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, pouring into one consolidated platform that has been funneled through editors and people refining the message and boiling it down to the most effective delivery mechanism, which is a book. There is absolutely nothing on earth that will ever compare to your ability to acquire knowledge than reading a book. And there's an argument for books versus audiobooks. You can disagree with me here, but I don't think audiobooks are effective, nearly as effective as reading physical books. I just don't believe that you're able to retain as much at all. I don't believe that you're going to grow or learn as much. And there is a secondary effect to sitting down and completing a book cover to cover, the discipline that it takes, the brain's ability to process this information, the retention and the comprehension that happens from reading a book. Audiobooks just don't do it, okay? You're always gonna be distracted. There's a whole list of reasons why I believe that. You can disagree with that, but this episode is about speed reading, so we can't do that on audio. Next, I wanna preface speed reading with an analogy or maybe a metaphor, an analogy that I think sums it up really well. So I remember years ago I watched an episode of Sports Science, and it was about the fact that it should be physically impossible to hit a major league fastball. And they did a study where they had a major league pitcher, let's say he's 6'2" and he throws a 92-mile-per-hour fastball, and they measured the distance from his release point to the point of contact with the batter. And whatever that distance was, let's say it's 40 feet, right? It's 60 feet, blah, blah, blah. Let's say it's 45 feet. And they measured the time that it takes for a 92 mile per hour fastball to go 45 feet is whatever milliseconds, okay? They also measured how fast the brain processes information. So going to the visual cortex to the motor cortex and completing and how long it takes to swing a bat for the average player. And what they found was it is physically impossible, it should be physically impossible for somebody to see a ball come through the release point, decide to take a swing, initiate the swing, and get the bat to the contact point in the time based on the brain's ability to process information and all of these things to function. It is like 5 times longer to do all that than the time actually it takes the ball to reach home plate. So how is it possible that players are hitting baseballs? The reason is this. The brain is actually processing information way faster than it takes to reach conscious comprehension. So just because you don't consciously understand or consciously know what's happening doesn't mean it's not being processed. It is being processed. It just takes longer to reach your conscious mind. That is the crux of speed reading. Read faster than you feel you can comprehend or you feel like is effective, okay? So that's a summary of why I think this is so important and why you should invest time and energy into developing this skill, and how kind of the psychology or the neurology of this works. Let's get started into your first lesson. when you want to set out to improve your speed reading, the first thing you have to do is get a baseline. All right. So what's important is there's a couple things with the books that you choose for this practice that you really want to be sure that you check off. First is speed reading training is really more effective with nonfiction books than it is fiction. The reason is when it gets to fiction, there is a harder comprehension that has to take place, and it's just not good to learn to speed read with that. You have to worry about like character, story arcs, the nuances, the language is different than like it could be, really fancy language or terms that are really specific to the storyline. If you're reading like Harry Potter, it's not real words a lot of the times. So nonfiction is best for learning speed reading. Number two is you want to choose a book that doesn't have a lot of like images, doesn't have a lot of tables and graphs. You want something that's primarily has long runways of text. Okay. So that's how you choose the book selection. So stop this, go pick your book out. Make sure you choose one that's got long blocks of text, doesn't have a lot of charts and graphs that are going to break up your ability to put in stretches of reading. And we'll stop there. So now that you've picked out your book, the next thing you need to do is get your baseline. So here's how you're going to get your baseline. What you're going to do is you're going to set 2 minutes on a timer. You're going to grab a stopwatch and you're going to find a starting point that has a long runway. So you want to have like 4 or 5 pages where there's no chapter turns. There's limited breaks in the text. Okay. So it doesn't matter where you start, but find that starting point, probably the beginning of a chapter. And you want to also choose a book that has long stretches like that. And you're going to set 2 minutes on a timer. And all you're going to do is read for 2 minutes, and then you're going to mark the start and end point. So I will stop you, and you should go and do that right now. All right, so now that you have done your speed reading, your regular reading for 2 minutes, now what you're going to do is you're going to count how many lines you read. So from the start to finish, you're just going to go through and you're going to count how many lines of text that you read. I'm just going to throw a round number out there. Let's say you read 50 lines, okay? So 50 lines of text is what you read. Write that down so you don't forget it. You might need a little math equation to do this here. Then what you're going to do is you're going to take 5 of those lines. The number of lines is less relevant. 5 of those lines. And you're going to count how many total words are in 5 lines. So you're just going to take 5 lines, count the total number of words. All right. So for example, it might be 55 words. All right. So if you count the number of words in 5 lines, it could be 55. Then what you're going to do is you're going to divide 55 by 5. And that is how many words per line that are in this book. All right. So for this context, I forget the numbers that we're working on. There's generally about 11 to 14 words per line. That's just a random fact for you. So let's just use 12 as a number. All right. So what you just identified was in 2 minutes, you were able to read 50 lines, 50 lines with 12 words per line. So that means 50 times 12 is 60 or 600. So you can read 600 words every 2 minutes. Now, if you want your words per minute, you divide that by 2. Now you know that your reading speed is 300 words per minute. That is your baseline. My guarantee with you today is if you go through all of these drills and start practicing them, you will double or triple that reading speed with 0 loss of comprehension. So stop this, do that whole math equation, figure out what your words per minute are. All right, so now that you've got your words per minute, let's talk about the actual mechanics of speed reading. So here's some of the things that you need to know about mechanics. The reason that we read slowly a lot of times is because we were taught to read incorrectly or poorly. All right, there's 2 main functions why we read slowly. The first is our eyes bounce as we read. Okay, so if we're just reading, what we do is we read, we bounce back, we read, we bounce back. So by the time we've read a line, we've generally read multiple times. Okay, so to avoid that, we have to use a tracer. So either your finger or a pen. That will bypass the bouncing that typically happens when you're reading. So using a pacer or a tracer, this will bypass that function. It's a neural thing that happens. Number two reason that we are slow readers is we tend to verbalize what we're reading. So we read in our heads. So if we are reading in our head, by default, we can only read as fast as we can consciously process. So there's a mechanism that you can add that negates that. And the way you do it is you hum while you read. Now, I'm not saying you do this forever, but when you're learning the skill of speed reading, it is important that you practice this. If you hum while you read, you won't feel like you're processing because it'll feel like you're distracted. But again, you are processing. It's just not conscious. So the first drill is to go use a pacer and hum while you read. So I want to challenge you, stop the video now, practice that as a drill, use a pacer, hum while you read for 2 minutes, see how many lines that you can read. I guarantee it's a little bit faster than before. Now, don't stop because you're worried about comprehension, all right? So if you've done that, I hope that you probably found that you read faster. If you didn't, it's because you were in your head a little too much, all right? I want to give you the next tip. So the next tip has to do with what's called your peripheral vision. So we have incredible strength of our peripheral vision and noticing things that happen outside of our direct line of vision. It's why if you're at a baseball game and you see a foul ball coming, you see it and can dodge it before, or hopefully you dodge it, before it ends up whacking you in the face. That's the power of your peripheral vision. It's incredibly powerful. What that also means is that you don't have to read end to end of every single line. A really good tool or a tip for speed reading is to make a mental line about an inch in from the edges of the pages, okay? And be disciplined in only reading within that shrunken margin and trust that your peripheral vision is picking up the rest. So you are tracing, but you're not going fully end to end. You're just going right in the middle. The peripheral vision picks up the rest while you're humming and you're using your tracer. So that's the next skill, is to use peripheral vision to cut out the ends and practice, reading with shrunken margins. So stop that, try that next drill. If you want to keep drilling this, time yourself, see how many more lines you can read with that system. Next drill, now that you've shrunken the margins, I want to challenge you to do another exercise. And this is going to be in the fitness world, kind of like an overload effect, right? Or like a accommodating resistance maybe. So not quite as relevant, but what I want you to do is I want you to read for 1 minute. And using all these drills like the shrunken margins and using the tracing, you're going to read for 1 minute and you're going to count how many lines you read. Let's just use round numbers here. Let's say it was 100 lines in 1 minute. So it's already double what you did at the start of this video. So let's say it's 100 lines. And then what I want you to do is I want you to set a timer for 30 seconds. And I want you to read as fast, faster than you can even, you think it's silly how fast you have to read. And I want you to try to read 100 lines in 30 seconds. So forcing yourself to don't worry about comprehension here. This is not about comprehension. This is just a drill to train your brain. You're going to read 100 lines. You're going to go the same distance. So you're marking the start and end of that 100 line thing in 30 seconds. Okay. So again, you're going way faster than you can actually comprehend. You're not worried about retention. All you're worried about is getting to 100 before that 30 seconds is up. Okay. Now I want you to do the same thing again with 20 seconds. Okay, so all this is a drill to overload your processing speed. Okay, so it's almost like loading the bar with 500 pounds just for a static set on a squat, and then taking that off and then doing 300-pound squat. It's gonna feel way lighter, all right? It's the overload principle, or there's some principle I'm blanking on the name of. So do that. So sometimes this is done 4, 3, 2, 1 with minutes. I just do it 1 minute, 30 seconds, 20 seconds. The goal is get the same number of lines with the shrunken time frame. So stop this video and go do that now. All right, so you've done that. Those are the key drills with speed reading. All right. I am inclined to believe that incorporating those drills and practicing in that way, you are going to read way faster. I mean, there's a good chance that just doing those things right now, you've increased your ability to comprehend and retain information at a much faster rate. Now, here's the thing. You're not going to be doing this every single time. This is a drill. You are training your brain like a muscle. So the more you do it, the longer you stay disciplined in doing it and add these drills into your reading routine, the better you're going to get. So how do you incorporate this and ingrain this as a habit? I'm going to give you a couple last little pointers, okay? So the first thing is, one, do not worry about comprehending in the moment. Like I said, you are processing it. It's just not going to reach conscious processing till later, all right? So that's why a lot of people feel like I'm like lying when I say how fast I can read and how quickly I can get through a page. But really what's happening is I'll get through a page and no, I couldn't tell you what every single word was, but I can tell you everything that happened. And that's what's important. It's not about being a literary expert. It's about downloading the key concepts and important things into your knowledge base in your brain. All right, so that's the first one. Number two, a little hack that you can do is a lot of these books have, a lot of nonfiction books will have chapter summaries. All right, so like at the end, you'll see like a key points. This one doesn't, but you know, you'll see like little key points, especially in nonfiction books. Before you read every chapter, go to that end point, all right, and review the key points. All right. Sometimes you can do this in just the chapter title, okay, or like the first little block. Like this book has these little pre-chapter like tips. So go to the end, read the key points. What you're doing is you're training what's called your reticular activating system. This is the brain's filter for information. It basically puts a little flag on what you should bring to more conscious awareness. So once you know what the key points are, now your brain, it's almost like having like heat-seeking knowledge missiles coming out your eyes. It's going to flag every word that is associated with anything in that key points section, all right? So when you can do that, everything else falls off the page. Your brain doesn't even process it because it's irrelevant. So instead of like reading, you know, what the editor felt like was a really great sounding sentence or piece of the story, you're only downloading the most relevant information for, you know, the key points. Okay. So that's another tip. And the last one is just get yourself in a good position to be focused. All right. There is an issue with the way we can process stuff if we're looking down, right? There's a body language aspect to that. There's a nervous system aspect to that where we're going to be feeling lower. We're not going to be as focused. So try to get yourself into a good body position, keeping the book in full frame in front of your eyes. So it's not like you're like leaning off to the side or trying to read it at an angle. Try to be focused in your reading. Now, this might feel like a lot, but here's the benefit. In 10 minutes, you will be able to do what took you previously an hour to read in the past. So is 10 minutes being in a focused kind of reading state and learning state worth it when you save yourself an additional 50 minutes of like, I'm just going to pop this book open and read it as I go. All right. And the last thing that I'll tell you, and I'll be honest, when I learned this, I learned this from a guy, Jim Quick. He's got a quick reading program. It's a 21-day program, way better than I could ever teach. I would recommend if you're interested in this stuff, go take the course. It's really good. It's where I learned all this. But he promotes something that I believe has been debunked in a lot of ways. And it's the left brain, right brain dominance thing where right brain people are more artistic, left brain people are more analytical. Believe it's pretty debunked in the world of neuroscience. But you have what's called the corpus callosum that ties the two hemispheres of the brain together. It's a bridge between the middle. The point is, do some brain training exercises that are going to help you tie the two sides of the brain together. One that he does, and this is just a warm up for your peripheral vision. There's two things that he teaches. The first one is juggling. Okay, it is impossible to juggle if you're trying to look at all the balls. It forces you to zoom out and expand into your peripheral vision. So when you're juggling, and I wish I had my juggling balls, it's a great brain warm-up drill. So juggling forces you to keep one gaze as if you're reading a book and pick up information in front of you without looking at every single one. So it's a great brain training drill. I juggle. I try to get 20 in a row, which is easy at this point, to warm my brain up before I sit down to read every morning. It also just wakes me up every day. So I try to do that every day before I start reading. Another drill that he does, if you're not good at juggling, is to just use your finger and do really big figure eights and trying to follow your finger as it goes through your peripheral vision. This is another way to tie your corpus callosum and get neurons firing from one hemisphere, so he says, from one hemisphere of the brain to the other. It's a good way to light up your peripheral vision and get you focused to start reading. So that, in one shot, is how you can double, triple, quadruple your speed reading speed. Personally, I went from about 300 words per minute to over 1,500 words per minute. I'm able to read I read about 10 books every single month. No, that's not right. I read about 10 books every month, 10 to 15 books every single month using these drills. And again, if you don't want to invest the time and energy into learning this skill, you're just never going to read well, and you're never going to comprehend things at the rate of maybe your competitors or people that, you know, are doing better than you in the marketplace, or you're not going to do as much as you want in your life if you're not comprehending as much. So if you're interested, I hope this helps. Just a quick summary. Make sure you use a visual pacer. Do things like hum while you're learning this drill of speed reading. Try to shrink the margins so you're not reading total end to end. Make sure that you do an overload drill where you read way faster than you think you can comprehend, because you are actually comprehending it, just like you can't hit a baseball physically through comprehension. And finally, read the key points before reading the chapter to light up your reticular activating system, and do some sort of drill to warm up your brain and tie the two hemispheres together through that corpus callosum. Hope that helps.